What is up, you guys? The Fallout with here, and today I'm going to be doing the what if. What if Issei was in had Rage Gear Part Two? No, Part One. And the title for this is basically Issei's story. So if you already know, it's gonna be talking about how Issei lived his life, what happened, and how did the Rage Gear affect him in some ways. Well, before we get to that, I found out something about the voice actor for Issei. Only the season 1 and 2 voice actor. His name is Scott Freeman. I found out something about him. The guy was a straight up. He had child. He had child. He's seen children naked in their birthday suits, mind you. He was in possession of that. So I was trying to find out where Issei lived, or at least what was the place he spent his childhood at. Yeah, that took a weird turn right there. But don't worry, the season 3, 4, and hopefully 5 is voiced by a different actor, mind you. It's a different actor right there, so we don't have to worry about that. We could still love Issei, even though that's kind of weird. But anyway, we'll get to this part of the story. Oh yeah, before I go say that, like, comment, do subscribe to the channel here, people. And that's pretty much it. New habit of mine, hopefully. And what happens in the anime is that Issei's story is kind of a sad one and kind of dark, but it has some happy elements to it. And here we go. What happens to Issei? Well, after being born and having different marks on him, having white hair, and his skin looking a little darkish, the father decided to have a paternity test, which he found out it was his kid. But while that was happening, there was people who tried to kidnap Issei. A group of people who noticed that this kid was somewhat special. At the age of a month old, at the age of 1 month, Issei has been almost kidnapped twice. The reason why is because his power, or the thing within him, sometimes flares up from time to time and tries to power up Issei. But because since he's still a child, all Issei does is sometimes cry. And the only thing that soothes him was his mother's voice. And over the years, or over the past 3 to 6 years, they were successfully able to not get kidnapped, or the child, no less, was not kidnapped. But after spending time with a girl or a boy, as people would have saw at first, she basically told Issei that she was a boy and she was going to leave, planting a kiss on Issei's cheeks. Issei was actually unable to have these emotions until he cried in the very end. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, somebody gave me the idea of giving the name Kayal. Kayal. K-A-Y-A-L. Kayal. His name is like that. It's spelled like that, at least. And not only that, the woman who was in the church, or not church, the woman that Kayal liked, her name is gonna be Mary, because that's the most generic name ever in the old days. So, bang bang. Boom. Right there. Oh, boy. I'm on a roll right here. So, what had happened to Issei is that his parents, after his seventh birthday, died. Now, how they died, well, we'll get to that. Right now, his parents died through piercing into the heart. Now, I'll just be straight up with you, viewers. It's basically a man who has the form of fallen angel wings, who has fallen angel wings, known as Kikabiel or Kokabiel. Yeah, Kokabiel. Kokabiel decided to kill the parents because of the fact that they were not successful in kidnapping them whatsoever. And I know what I said. I know what I said. It was not fallen angels, it wasn't demons or angels that try to kidnap him. But at the same time, there has to be a bad guy. And that bad guy, fortunately, has to be Kokabiel. Now, or is it Kakabiel? I'm kind of confused on the naming. But one day when Issei came back home after, visiting some people and just looking around, or not visiting people, because one thing's for sure, Issei was not liked because he looked weird. He looked weird to people who didn't understand why he had markings on him. The only thing he knows is that it was a birthmark. And yeah, that's kind of sad. Oh yeah, this is Gasper. So at least, or Gasper. To each their own. Now, what happened is Issei was playing one day or trying to make friends, but he couldn't make friends since Irina left, and because of that, he was trying to search for people like who could be friendly with him. The thing is, the parents died, and Issei walked into the room or into the house and couldn't find them whatsoever. So, to his shock, he saw his parents and he was kind of disgusted at first. And he was wondering, like, what should he do? How does he wake them up and stuff? But after finding out that they're dead, it takes a huge toll on him. Issei is sad, but he's also angry. And his powers, or at least his gear, is starting to awaken bit by bit. But then he just cries even more, and all that rage is just left into sadness. Issei doesn't know how to pay any bills and stuff, so technically he's just put into an orphanage. But Issei knows that nobody likes him, so he decides to just be alone. Now, Issei has somewhat awakened some abilities to it, such as hyper, or he's hyperactive. Because of his hyperactiveness, he tends to see things differently, such as if he concentrates, he won't be able to concentrate for at least a good what? Sorry, I gotta drink some water. Okay. Because of this, he wouldn't be able to concentrate like normal kids would, or at least kids who has the attention span of a freaking dog. Now, not only that, because of this, he looks more skinnier, and he is skinnier because his body isn't able to, is just using up all that energy, which gives him this kind of, not anorexic, but he looks kind of more skinny, like his arms and stuff. So he looks like a skeleton at times. But because of how he acts around people, sometimes he just grabs food and just starts running away. Hungry at times, he lives near the park until one day after a huge rainstorm starts to come, a girl with blonde hair and blue eyes comes towards him. Now, mind you, she's actually younger than Issei by at least a year or two. And Issei doesn't know how to communicate with people all the time. He's only been able to communicate for quite a while. And the only reason why he communicates with Arena is because, well, first of all, he didn't actually go to school. He doesn't know anything about school. So, the only thing he does know is that he's kind of. What's the word? He's kind of not great with speaking or languages, but he understands how the heart works, which is an ability he somewhat understands how to use. He understands how emotions can affect people, how people who are in need will act a certain way, or people who are angry would act a certain way. So Issei is seeing this girl, and she's basically in the park with Issei. And they're actually under a playground set. And this girl is getting upset because she's basically wet. And Issei's wet, but Issei doesn't see her at first until she looks at him and says, "Who are you?" Issei looks up and says, "Who are you?" The girl says, "That's right. Who are you?" And this is when Issei says, "I'm Issei." And she says, "All right. Hello, Issei." And this is when she was waiting for him to say, "Who are you?" back, but she says, "Oh, we'll forget about that for right now." And while looking at her, he notices that she looks a little too rich. Well, she looks like a princess or some kind of like royalty because of the way she dresses. And if you guys know anything about the Phoenix clan, since you all probably will know by now, young blonde hair girl with blue eyes would be, Ravel. The girl calls herself Ravel towards him and says that I do not know where I'm at. And this is when Issei says we're at the park. And she looks at him and says, "Seriously? I know we're at the park, but you should, we're at the park. What city are we in? What town, at least? Are we in a county or we're at a little, neighborhood? Obviously, you should know this since, you live here." And she realizes that she should have taken back what she said because she looks at Issei and realizes that he doesn't have nice clothes. He doesn't even have decent clothes at all. Not even commoner clothes. It's somewhat looking like peasants' clothing. And she says, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that to you." And Issei looks at her, walks up to her, and basically gives her a pat on the head. And basically gives her a hug. And she would be kind of disgusted if somebody who wasn't cleaned at all would hug her, but she couldn't say anything because this kid looked like he needed a hug. But she's the one being hugged. And Issei looks at her and says, "Chicken." And this is what she says, "Chicken? Chicken?" And this is when Issei looks at her and says, "Hair like chicken." And this is when she says, "I am not a chicken." And this is when Issei looks at her and says, "Chicken, you look like a chicken." And she says, "Why do you keep calling me a chicken? I'm not a chicken." And Issei says, he looks at her. He kind of looks at her at first, and then he kind of growls and slobbers a bit, and he looks at her and says, "Chicken." That's basically Those two are running around in the rain, and this is when Issei gets on all fours because, well, after being able to see how different like animals get, how what shit, my bad. He sees how different people run, but he also sees how animals run and realizes that animals are way faster than people. So he decides to try to play around with animals since the humans won't play around with him. He's kind of just eh. So we have a no. So basically, we have a person with no educational skills, no common sense, nor decency. Somebody who, after his parents died, had a year of or had a couple of years. No, wait. He turns 9, so Ravel's 8, 7 or 8, and she's smarter than him by a crap ton. And Issei is not the brightest. He's not the brightest person. And not only that, because of his hunger and the way he looks and the way his instincts are, he relies on his instincts way more often than he would his common sense, because it's the only thing that keeps him alive and keeps him, that lets him survive, which is actually another part of the gear that he would have. He would have animalistic instincts, or instincts that will help him survive. Now, if anything, he starts running towards her, but then she starts laughing, and Issei kind of laughs too. Basically, both of them are having kind of fun. Even though she sees him not actually chasing after her to eat her, she does enjoy the fact that Issei is smiling a bit. Until he catches her, and they roll around. After they are, after, they both lie on their backs, they started laughing. This is when she says she never knew this would be so much fun. Not a lot of people would have fun with her. And this is when he says, "Who are you?" And she says, "I already told you, I'm Ravel. My name is Ravel Phoenix." And she also says, "And I'm not a chicken." And this is when Issei says, I'm sorry. Alright, so Issei says, "Ravel-chan." And she says, "Ravel-chan? Alright, I guess you can call me Ravel-chan. But don't call me Lady Ravel or Miss Ravel, because I don't like formalities too much. But Chan does not sound bad." And this is when he looks at her and says, "Chicken flavored Maru-chan." And this is when she says, "You're still hungry?" And looks at his stomach and says, "Yes." And this is when she says, "Oh, I forgot. Well, why don't you come with me? We gotta at least be warm." And this is when they start walking around. They start walking towards a store, and she says, "Look, if we have to go to the alleyway first. If we do that, then we can actually, heat ourselves up." And Issei says, "What does that mean?" And she looks at him and says, "I don't know if I should show him, but he's my, he's a friend of mine. He's actually nice to me. And this is the, I don't know if he's gonna like me if I show him this." And this is when Issei says, "So what does that mean?" And she says, "Issei, are we friends?" And this is when Issei says, I I don't know. Are we friends?" And she says, "Well, I think of you as my friend. So what about you?" Adding a slight blush to it, Issei looks at her and, she's fidgeting with her fingers and looking down. She says, "Are we friends?" And this is when Issei looks at her and says, "We are friends. You're my friend." And she actually is happy about this. Issei looking at her and saying, "So we are friends." And Ravel saying, "Yes, we are friends." And he says, "We're friends." And she says, "How many times do I have to tell you?" And this is when Issei basically gives her a hug. Again, well, this time, Ravel notices this is not too. It's not a comforting thing that he's doing. It's more like he's so happy that he's showing her how happy she is. And Ravel realizes that he doesn't seem to be having a lot of friends. After all, at first, the first time she saw him, he didn't smile. He kind of looked sad or down. And this is when Ravel stated that Issei would have been happier if he had a friend. If, well, she doesn't know how to put it, to be honest. But all she knows is that Issei is happy because he's her friend. And he has a friend now. But this is when she realizes that she is somebody who isn't happy that he doesn't have friends. Wouldn't he be happy that he has parents? But looking at how he looks, there's only two things. One is, does he have a family? If not, that's why he looks like this. Or two, he was abandoned. Or three, because there's always a third one, no matter what anyone says, he was abused and just thrown away like trash. The last one kind of infuriating her. And she says, "Issei, tell you what, we're going to actually heat you up right now. But I don't want you to be scared of me, alright?" This is when Issei says, "Okay." And she basically lets go of the grip. Issei, being kind of sad about this. But Ravel says, "Don't worry," and kind of just starts, concentrating and shoots out her wings. And Issei looks at her. She looks at how beautiful Ravel truly is because of those wings, kind of adding a light to Ravel's personality in a way. The fire kind of, complements how she looks in his eyes. This is when Issei also realizes one thing. She's not a chicken. She's a Nah, Issei doesn't say that. He basically says she is a chicken. And this is when Ravel basically says, "I'm not a chicken." And this is when Issei says, "Alright, what if I just grab one of these?" And basically touches it. Issei automatically just, you know, groaning in pain, saying that this is actually hot. He should have cooled it off before he eats the chicken. And this is when she says, "I don't know if he wants to be my friend or he wants me to be the main course." But this is when she says, "You're burning, you idiot." And this is when Issei says sorry. And while they're actually doing that, there's a group of thugs looking at them. One looking at Issei and not paying too much mind to him, but looking at the girl with the expensive looking clothing and realizes that she's probably loaded, or she's someone's kid, or she's a rich man's kid. So they're about to take her, but Ravel, after seeing that Issei's still hungry, grabs his hand, and Issei just following her. And while this is happening, Issei sees that there's a bunch of food around him. A part of him wants to go get some and just start to eat. And this is when Ravel says, "No," he say, "you can't do that." And the guy says, hold it right there. That little kid has been grabbing all my food, has been grabbing pieces of food that were on the shelves, and runs away with them like a dog. Why should I? Why don't you take him out right now? But you, on the other hand, miss, how may I help you? And this is when Ravel sees that Issei's been being a little troublemaker, but it's expected from him because, well, he's just doing what he does to survive. She says, "How much food has he eaten, sir?" Has he ate? And the guy says, "Oh, he's eaten a lot of food. Every single day, he just grabs a piece of bread or grabs some meat off the shelves. He tried to grab a can once and, put him on his teeth, but it slid because it's metal." And this is when Ravel says, "Don't worry," you say. "I understand how it is. I don't understand how it feels, but I understand that you were just hungry." And basically says how much to pay for all his food. And this is when the clerk, the person who's about to do business with her, he says a total around. I'm going to use American currency because I don't know how to do this whole thing. He says around $300 to $400, around 378. And she says, "Done," and just hands her the money, or at least hands her a card, hands him a card. And this is when he's like, "What? You're going to just pay all this off for him?" And this is when she says, "Yeah, he's my friend. And not only that, if it's paid for, then he could stay, right?" And the guy is like, uh, "I guess. I mean, I should have. I'm probably not going to get so mad now, but it's infuriating to know that he's still here. But I could tolerate him if you keep him on a good leash." And this is when she says he's not a dog or some kind of animal. And this is when the guy says, "Look at him." And she realizes that Issei's basically just slobbering all over the place. And well, after all that, she basically says, "We're gonna have to get you some clothes too." But this is after what Issei did. After Issei getting, like, let's just say he grabs a couple of burgers and a slice of pizza. Ravel just grabs a milkshake and a couple of cookies. And this is when her sweet tooth actually, becomes a thing, because she likes sweets and she gave Issei sweets over the course, of his life. Or no, she's given Issei and Canon some, chocolates and some sweets and breads, some cakes. So of course he's gonna eat them. And after finishing the meal, she realizes how fast this kid can eat. And yeah, he was very hungry. The only thing that was kind of funny was the fact that after Issei was done eating, he started choking a bit, trying to, like, pound on his chest. And with Ravel, giving him some, not liquid, giving him like a cup of water, and him feeling better now, they realize that it's not raining as much as it used to. But this is when one of the guys grabs Ravel, and Ravel, after she could have actually known, she would have known what happened, but one of the guys grabbed Issei and says, "What do we do with these two?" And the third guy says, "Just grab him and take him in the car." This is when Issei and Ravel are being dragged. And Ravel, after seeing this, her food is dropped, and Issei looks at her and says, "What's happening?" Feeling the intent of bad things happening around him, Issei looks at Ravel and tries to grab Ravel, but the guy says, "Tie him up. He's being a little too feisty." Issei, trying to wiggle his way out with all the strength possible. He looks at Ravel, and Ravel tries to say, "Issei, everything will be alright." And the guy says, "Shut up." And this is when Ravel says, "Do you know who I am? My name is Ravel Phoenix, and I'm part of the Phoenix clan. And I swear, my big brother will hurt you once he grabs his hands on you." This is when Issei looks at her, and the guy smacks her smacks her face. Issei looking at this, Ravel starting to cry a bit. Even though she's a phoenix, her powers aren't there just yet. So, well, she would have felt that pain either way. Riser could feel the pain over the time they were fighting, but he's felt it to the point to where he understands how to heal himself quickly and take away the pain. Ravel, however, felt that and has a bruise on her face, starts crying, and Issei looks at that and starts to flip out, causing Issei's skin to start having those lines more defined. This is when he basically starts looking at the guy, and he looks at the guy that was there, places his face on his shoulder, and just takes a huge bite out of him. Not ripping the flesh or anything like that, but as you may know, Issei looks at Ravel like food, so he will just bite anyone if he has the chance. So this is when the guy says, the brat bit." Oh shit! Now I got the hiccups. "The brat bit me," and this is when he's like, "Why don't you have him under control?" This is when Issei looks at him, and he somewhat gets out of his grip. And this is when the guy picks him up by his, by the neck. Issei, trying to move, gets even more mad because he can't do anything. So, picking his legs up, wrapping his whole body around that one dude's arm, he basically pulls back as hard as he can, causing him to do a flip, and the guy to hit the other guy. And while they're not, how do I say it? While they're, man. Well, while they're, distracted, Issei looks at the guy and gives him a swift kick to the nuts, causing the guy to have his hand on his, on his junk. Issei starts, moving back a bit and just charging as he can, headbutting him. And this is when the guy basically drops Ravel being grabbed by Issei. The guy, now that the four guys are down, and the reason, well, not the four guys are down, they're distracted and they're in pain because one of them was grabbed and bitten. The other guy grabs Issei, and this is when he basically does the flip. And he didn't throw him far; he threw him like a meter or so. So yeah, it wasn't too epic. But Issei headbutting the guy that he kicked, whose nuts he's kicked. Oh yeah, he's pretty much not defeated them, but he stalled them enough to where he grabs Ravel and just starts running with her. Or not running with her, because he's actually lifting her up in the air, causing her to jump up and down, and her saying that this is not the most romantic way to, save a princess. And he says, "I'm trying to think, chicken. Be quiet." And she says, "Once we're out of this, I will smack you for keep calling me a chicken." And Issei just starts running and running. But because he's still not as, full powered, he's not running at fast pace. Even though he's hyperactive, he still needs an energy source. Now, after they like ran a couple of blocks, the other guys try to find Ravel, and well, the kid who they bit, or Issei is on the ground just panting, and Ravel saying, "Issei, shush, shush. We're trying to hide away from them." And this is when he realizes that he saw that this kid doesn't have that much of muscle on him. No muscle, no freaking fat on him. Well, no, he has barely any fat on him, and any muscle that he should have had was pretty much, well, non-defiant. This kid right here saved her and saw that he's like, what's the word? He's somewhat different. And not only that, she realizes that this kid did all this to save her. She blushes a cute little pink and says that, well, you're not very smart, but you're a hero. And this is when Issei looks at her and says, "What's a hero?" And this is when she says, "A hero's someone who does good things, and is called a hero because, well, they do things because it's good, or it's the right thing to do." And Issei says, "Alright, chicken, I'm going to sleep." This is when she says, "There's no time for you to go to sleep." And this is when Issei starts hearing the footsteps and hears the rustling of bushes, and his instincts kick in. And when he does that, he basically gives a hard kick, or at least kicks as hard as he can, causing his leg to be up. And the guy grabs him, and he basically picks him up from his leg and his head down. This is when the guy says, "Well, well, now I see that these two brats are over here." And the guy who got headbutted and kicked, the one who had Ravel in his hands, basically says, "So you think you're tough?" and smacks him in the face and punches him in the gut. This is when Ravel sees this and says, "Don't hurt him." And the guy says, "Or what?" This is when the guy grabs Ravel, and this is when other guy. Let me see if I have a picture of him. Hold on here. All right, so instead of just making a new sibling, I saw that there was at least two siblings that were male and one sibling of Ravel's that was female. We're gonna go with the freaking brother. Uh, his name is Ravel, and I saw that it was the the younger brother, but I'm gonna make him the older brother because, why not? So, Ravel decided to make a barrier, causing the two, well, causing everybody to be wondering why the sky is purple. But then Ravel decided to say, "How dare all of you touch my sister?" And he says, "Right now I will give you a swift death if you let go of her. If not, then you will burn in hell, and I will be the one that punishes you." This causes the guy to flinch at first, but he says, "What are you gonna do about it? We have your sister, and at the same time, we're not gonna just let you go. There's four of us and one of you, and this would actually infuriate a devil. But Ravel is a kind-hearted person, and not only that, he's a person who thinks with his head. Right now, he has to think of this quietly, but deciding that, not to waste too much time, another person decides to just end it all there. And this would be the oldest, or at least the eldest brother, known as Riser. Riser looking at him, saying, "Brother, you're too soft. She is a phoenix like us, so she is not going to. She is not going to get will. Well, she will recover from this." And just flies towards the guy at top speed, grabbing him and just burning it off, causing the guy to drop Ravel. And this is when he says, "Dear sister, why don't you run over there?" And then he looks at all the rest of them. And this is when Ravel just says, I will take Ravel with us." Why did you, shit, sorry about that. Why did you fly away? And she says, "Because I wanted to go to the park." And and Ravel tells her, "Well, you should have gone to the park." "But I really wanted to." "No." "Yes." "No." "Yes." And this is why she left. Now, he tells her, why didn't you listen to me?" And she started to cry, saying, "I wanted to go to the park. And I was also lost." So that's the real reason. You got lost to where we were at, and now you decided to just think that we're not going to punish you? And she says, "But my friend." And he says, "What friend? All I just saw was 5 people that was all dirtied and stuff, and they're all soaking wet." And she says, "But my friend, he's..." And this is when the guy tries to. Well, this is when Ravel decides to say, "All right, enough. I don't want to hear any more you're talking right now. As much as I would be calm, the fact that they decide to hurt you is unforgivable, and they will all be punished." And this is when Ravel tries to explain, but she's all he shit. Sorry, all he's doing is not listening to her. And this is when Riser decides to start pounding them one by one, just killing them off until he sees, well, Issei. This is when he says, "So you're the one who tried to, well, you're the one who tried to you're the one who they used to kidnap my sister. Well, child, as far as I know, you're no longer a child in my eyes. Now you're just a common petty criminal. You're vile and you're disgusting." This is when the guy grabs Issei's hair and punches him in the stomach, causing those flashbacks of what the guys did, causing him to get mad again. And not seeing Ravel, he unleashes his true anger and just grabs Riser's arm, doing the same technique, and doing it so hard that Riser fell not one, not two, but 3 meters away, causing Issei to start panting. This is when the gear is starting to form more and more in his heart, causing it to just start recalibrating everything around the soul. But his soul is starting to weaken and starting to feel pain. This is when Issei starts to feel it, and this is when Riser says, "You dare do this to me, child? Riser should put you in his place, or will put you in your place." And this is when he just knees Issei in the face, grabs him, and starts picking him up, starting to fly with him. Well, technically flying all the way up on the air. This is when Ravel sees Riser in the air with Issei in hand. And this is when he just flies down so fast, causing a meteor, well, technically causing a crater. And Issei was slammed onto the ground so hard that Issei is unconscious. And this is when Issei basically looks around in his mind. Well, he can't see anything, but he sees himself. He sees that there's another person looking at him. Issei is just closing his eyes, drifting to the slumbers, which is death. Well, to the grasp of death. And this is when the man, known as Kayal, looks at him and says, I see. You're giving up. Why are you giving up? You should be right there, beating him down, pushing to your limits. You're not a weak host. You're strong. I have faith in you. Believe me, I understand, and I know who you are. But you have to survive. I don't want to see you die. This is when Issei is starting to have something thump in his chest. And he wakes up to see that Riser is starting to create a big fireball. Not too big, but enough to make sure that the rest of them are just nothing more but ash. The bone, he's making sure that even the bones are all ash. And this is when Issei starts to get up and just grabs the fireball that Riser has thrown, holding it off for a good 6 to 7 seconds. This is when Issei just starts to feel this power going through him. Instead of white hair, he actually has black hair. Well, he has white hair, but this is when his hair turns black. But after that, turns white again. And his whole body starts to become paler. And this is when Issei's soul is just starting to crack and starting to break. And after that, 7 seconds, after those 7 seconds, Issei is just on the ground again. But he's so far into the earth right now, it's actually covered. So, technically, Riser doesn't see him alive at all. And Issei is just buried right now under the gravel and under the, well, dirt. And not only that, the rest of the people are just gone. Not a single trace of them besides what was once their body. This is when Issei looks at nothing. After that, people found him lying there, calling him the child that was buried in earth. And this is when Issei is looking different. His skin is paler. His eyes are actually more defined as colorful. A bright golden color. And this is when his hair is black. Not black, but black. Hold on here for a second. I'm trying to. Shit, hold on here. Sorry about that. Give me a second here. Alright, sorry about that, people. I usually don't show. Basically, I have a Snapchat and all that stuff, as you probably have seen. But, yeah, something was messing up with the audio. Now, where was that? Oh, yeah. His eyes are black, his skin is whiter, so he basically looks like the typical... He looks like how he would have in the anime, but black hair. Not only that, he just starts to basically cry. And he just became silent. His memories were broken, causing them to shatter, and now he can't actually remember who he was. Not only that, anybody up to that point It seems that all that rage that was within him at one point, everything that made him who he was, just broke away, causing him to have a new life, causing him to be a bit more happier, if anything, causing him to not know who he is. He's an innocent person, and people don't actually look at him differently. People don't even recognize who he was. And this causes Issei to actually have a bit of a normal childhood. At first, he was silent, but now he talks. He thinks, and not only that, nobody actually is scared of him. So, he actually has a normal childhood, which starts to pick up. And Issei would be, it would be the regular life of Issei. But until he reaches high school. High school's way more different than anything else that I'm going to be talking about. But this is Issei's life, and this is the how Issei became who he is. And now we're going to actually do the next episode. Hopefully you will like it tomorrow, or actually today if I'm not doing anything. But anyway, part 2 will be out at least tonight, or at least tomorrow in the morning. But until then, this has been the Fallout with a Fear. Bye.